Thank you very much, Claire. And so we're back to the Chéile and who we are and the Chéile Schools Trust. And in front of you there are the crests of the 15 congregations that came together and was founded the Chéile Catholic Schools Trust in 2009. And as you look at that screen, I hope you're able to identify the crest for your school. In all, we have 15 congregations and 76 schools at primary, voluntary secondary, community schools, and we are schools that are open to all. Our Chéile crest, in comparison to the individual school crests, represents a coming together of sets of keys that symbolize the different pathways into a maze, central maze. And the interlocking keys symbolize that education gives access to everyone, opens doors, new knowledge, and possibilities. As we look at our Chéile philosophy and our vision, you'll see in the next series of slides, comes down to 3 words: welcome, wisdom, and witness. And a Chéile school is a place where we like to represent and it be seen that that welcome, wisdom, and witness is clear and visible to all. Reflections on these elements is for everyone in the school community, the school management, the staff, pupils, and parents. It represents the stories of our founders. And repeatedly, we come across instances where our founders sought to welcome the poor, the illiterate, and those who were victims of violence, injustice, and social inequality. The purpose of the welcome was to empower them to take control of their lives through becoming aware of their dignity. The task for the Chéile School today is to reflect on how this welcoming and inclusive attitude is experienced in the day-to-day running of our schools. In a reflective context, boards of management, staff, students, council, parents association can explore this aspect of their characteristic spirit of the school. So as you meet as boards of management, this is an area that we would like you to reflect on as you progress through your work as board of management members and boards as a collective. The education of the Chéile School is about transformation, a process enabling our students to become fully alive human beings. And one way of helping us to reflect on that is to reflect on those 3 words: welcome, wisdom, and witness, the core elements of what we call a Chéile spirituality. In the first part of a book of our founders, this is set out. And what you have in front of you there, the Chéile School Trust, it's our commitment to promote these values of welcome, wisdom, and witness. And just to say that around the schools, we suggest that as boards that you take a walk around your school, maybe for the first board meeting, and see are there elements of these visible within the schools. And the slides that you will see tonight are available to you, but this one in particular, should you like a copy of it, we have these resources on the website and we are happy to make them available to you. I know from going into schools, it's very familiar to see this inside your school. So if you don't have one, please do make contact with us. So our welcome recognizes the unique dignity and worth of each person, building on the Catholic tradition of being inclusive. And Ireland has changed, and all of our schools now are very inclusive in nature. Our wisdom is the pursuit of knowledge that enables our students to achieve academic excellence and supports them in understanding the world and seeking to improve it. And our witness. The Chéile School's witness to the gospel values of inclusion, truth, forgiveness, service, concern, spirituality, teaching and learning on a daily basis everything that we do in our schools. So another poster that we have in the Chéile Trust represents all of those values. And the final part of that jigsaw on the right-hand corner there are founding stories. And again, we would refer you to a resource that is, you know, a very, very good read and will bring us all back to our histories. And that is A Tale of 9 Centuries. And it is written by Sister Una Collins and Sean Gone. But in relation to all of the other resources that we have for you, we are going to make special mention tonight of the Articles of Management, the Schedule 1 and 2 for how the boards of management actually operate on a day-to-day basis and on a meeting-to-meeting basis. Living the Chéile Charter, the Chéile Strategic Plan 2019 to 2024. And a lot of people here tonight have been attending the cluster meetings and you know the work that's going on there. But for other trustee members, other board of management members, this may be something that can be discussed at board of management meetings. The Chéile Book of Prayers and Reflections, certainly as a principle, we found this very, very useful at our board meetings. I think particularly fondly tonight of Sister Laura at Dominican College, Griffith Avenue, and she always selected a prayer from the Chéile Book of Prayers. And it was something that started our meeting, very much referring back to our values and our founders. So if you don't have any of those resources, please do make contact with us. And all of the booklets and posters and the jigsaw chart that I showed you earlier, that is also available to you. Likewise, the Chéile Strategic Plan is also available to you. So please do not feel that you are on your own. We have a lot of resources and a lot of time went into creating these resources. So as you are here with us tonight, you represent some of our voluntary secondary schools whose boards of management are changing. And those schools were inspired by the characteristic spirit, ethos, and founding intentions of whatever school it is, of the 15 congregations that you are representing here tonight. Usually the founder of a school had a very specific intention or a mission for the school when it was founded. And that is your bouncing board for your school. The school would provide a Catholic education. It would reflect a particular charism and core values of the founder. And from these founding intentions derived your characteristic spirit, and that is your ethos. The board is subject to government guidelines, of course, as well, but every school has its own particular local context. And just moving on in terms of, there you have the trustees have ultimate responsibility for 3 main areas. And if we just hold on this slide for a moment, while you can see the jigsaw behind you that we've already mentioned, the main role of the Chéile Schools Trust is these 3 pillars: the ethos, the finance, and the property. And I am going to hand over to Mary-Therese now, and she's going to talk you through the Chéile Trust structure and its democratic processes.
Thanks, Olive. And again, great to see everybody. And I'm sure many of you may be familiar with this, but for anybody who is new, just that our Chéile Trust structure is actually very democratic. And I'm just going to explain to you a little bit about how it works. So Olive said a minute ago about the trustee responsibilities. And you may ask, well, who's the trustee or who's the patron? Well, the answer is it's Chéile and Chéile, when they combine, form Chéile Education Trust. So Chéile and Chéile, as you can see there in the picture, are 2 separate companies. So we have 2 companies, 2 charities, both are registered charities. And when they come together, they form the Catholic alliance called public juridic person, or the PJP. So that's how we get to operate as a Catholic trust, just like the other trusts. So ours, we're responsible to the bishops on an annual basis. So for Chéile, there is a board of directors, and that board is made up of congregational representatives and members from the expert group. But Chéile is actually run by the members who represent 2 per congregation. So that's quite important, that again, 2 members from every congregation own Chéile, and they are the founders, and it's from Chéile that originally the word Chéile means seed, and through Chéile, the capital and the creation of Chéile came about. So it's important to understand that from Chéile, Chéile came about, and the Chéile board of directors and the Chéile company, they are responsible for, again, the day-to-day piece of running of our schools, and they are the ones who run the enterprise of education and are the trustees and patron of all of our schools. So the Chéile board is made up of school representatives through our clusters and those who come then with particular expertise. And how are the directors appointed? Well, actually, directors are appointed through the company members, and the company members in Chéile are 2 people per school and 2 per congregation. So again, you can see that through Chéile, it's actually the schools that are the dominant piece. And then we, the Chéile team, we work for Chéile and Chéile combined. So the 7 of us currently on the Chéile team, and you'll get to meet to see a little bit about that later. But that explains who we are, how we were set up, and that the role of our clusters, our representatives, is very important in having a voice, and all of our schools within the organisation. So to become a company member, well, how do you do that? And here's a little bit about being a company member. So again, as a company, we are affiliated with the we are affiliated as a company, and then also, as I said, as a charity. And our charity requirements means we keep a register of members. The members are typically the chairperson and the principal of the school. But again, in some cases, maybe the chairperson isn't able to attend the AGM. So again, the board can decide who that might be. And in fact, the forms for that have just gone out to our schools in recent days. So the term of office of members usually matches the term of office of the board. So if you are a board who are starting your 3-year term now, well then generally the people that the board nominate as their members are there for the 3 years. So again, as I've said, those forms have gone out. And it's important for everybody to understand that the principal object, and this is very important in all companies, the reason and the rationale they're set up for is laid out in what's called the principal object. And for us in Chéile and Chéile, they share that same principal object of the advancement of education, and in our context, the development of Catholic education in accordance with the Catholic ethos that has been set out. So again, it's important there that company members understand their responsibilities. So we just thought that we would put up a little bit about company membership. And you can all go and read an awful lot more about it, but we just thought give you a little bit on it. And I'm back over to Olive.
That's great. Thank you very much, Mary-Therese. So now back to the role of the boards of management. And the board of management is appointed by the patron. The Chéile Schools Trust is the patron. And on that then we have trustees. And the role of those is, it shall be the duty of a board, so this is the board of management now, the duty of the board to manage the school on behalf of the patrons, the trustees, for the benefit of the students and their parents. And we have parent representatives here tonight, and you're most welcome. And to provide our cause, or to be provided an appropriate education for each student at the school for which that board has responsibility. Now, all of this is referenced from the 1998 Education Act. And that's where all of this is based in law. The Board of Management must consult and keep the patron informed of its decisions and proposals. And so the role, you can see now where the role of the Board of Management in linking back in with Chéile Schools Trust and keeping us informed. The articles of management also refer to this, and when we meet again at the JMB training, they will emphasize this a lot. We are mentioning it here tonight so that you have the context of it. But the articles of management subject to the general supervision and control of the trustees, and that is Article 2. So just moving on slightly then from there, Schedule 1, we're going to mention Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, and we're not trying to bombard people at all, but we are trying to give you a quick understanding of what it is. So the Schedule 1 really for principals, this is going to be your license and the map of the school. So go looking for it. It is there, and if any difficulties, make contact with us. This is what defines the school, and you should have a copy of that. And Schedule 2 then, this is the Chéile School Charter. And that is how the school is to be managed. So we're not going to overemphasize it tonight. We're just setting it out here to you. So moving on slightly there then to the articles of management. Now, this section here is taken from the Section 2 of the Articles of Management, outlining how the Board of Management conducts itself. And I've highlighted there, you know, all of the reference to the trustees. So that those 4 trustees on the Boards of Management have quite an onerous job to do, and it is a serious business. You can see the manual on the right hand side when you do the JMB Board of Management training, that you will get a copy of this. Tonight we're trying to summarize it for you, okay? But it is absolutely ingrained in the Education Act and in law, and that is why it is very important that those articles of management are understood. And we're not asking you to read the whole manual, but bit by bit, as you do the business of the board, it will become very, very clear to you. So the devolved then authority and responsibility, we just diagrammatically set this out for you here, and just in moving it on there briefly, that you will see from this diagram that again the patrons and the trustees of Chéile delegate powers to the Board of Management, and the Board of Management delegates powers to the principal. The principal is the day-to-day manager of the school. That principal keeps the Board of Management informed of all of the going-ons in the school, and particularly at meetings under the principal's report. And you can see it's a double-headed arrow here. So really what we're saying is this is a two-way relationship. And to get that relationship right between the principal and chairperson of the Board of Management and all members of the Board of Management, that's where the relationship of everyone on the board is absolutely crucial. And that's where the corporate governance comes in. Delegated powers, but yet steeped in that relationship, that productive relationship between all parties. So again, the trustees of Chéile and the Chéile Schools Trust, they have the reserved powers there. Claire, could I just add, I don't have control of the slides, or Mary-Therese.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Sorry there. So to appoint the board, to articulate the characteristic spirit of the school, that goes back to the founding patrons. License the board for educational enterprise, approve changes to property in advance. Now, later on, Mary-Therese is going to be talking very much about the importance of keeping everyone informed in terms of anything to do with property. So, you know, any little change, the Chéile must be informed of it. They have ultimate responsibility for the property and finance, and the trustees approve the admissions policy. So there'll be certain policies that come to Chéile every year, and the admissions policy is one of them. And most schools have just come to the end of that admission statement this year. You're probably in the middle of it. You send that to Chéile. We also do likewise with child protection, safeguarding statement, and just a reminder now to people to make sure that all those template trees have been sent back to us, and any changes of status or decisions, all of that must come to Chéile Schools Trust. So we've mentioned the JMB training. Your Saturdays in November will be taken up with training. The first training starts on the 11th of November. There are 3 venues, Dublin, Cork and Galway. The next one is the 18th of November, that'll be in Dundalk, and the last one then on the 25th of November in Kilkenny, Dublin and Limerick. And the next slide will show you where we are going to be. So in Dublin for the first weekend, myself and Mary-Therese will be in the Talbot Hotel in Stillorgan, and Claire Kilroy will be in the Clayton Hotel in Galway. The next weekend will refer to members in Athlone area or Dundalk, whichever is your choice of venue, and Mary-Therese will be in Dundalk in the Crown Plaza. And the final weekend then, that's the 25th of November, that will be the training there, Kilkenny, Dublin and Limerick, and I will be in the Clayton Liffey Valley Hotel there. And the good news for all of you is that you will get a lunch on the day. So that's our first thank you for partaking in all of this training. So when it comes, we've outlined now property and finance and the importance and the role of the Chéile Trust in relation to this, and the necessity for governance in it. So anything to do with finance and property, I have to emphasize has been taken terribly, terribly serious, and to ensure it's taken terribly, terribly serious, I'm going to pass back over to Mary-Therese.
Thanks, Adam. And again, I think many of you in the meeting probably could give a lot of this and could advise people on it yourselves. So thanks, Olive, for going through so much already. Coming back in, as Olive said, look, 3 particular things, which is ethos, finance and property within our remit. The financial management of a successful school is down to good work at board management level. It is very, very important that all members take ownership of this to ensure that there is constant oversight. Chairpersons, again, making sure that it's on the agenda, that questions are being asked, things are being drilled into, that you are getting the correct reports. And I know that at the JMB training, there will be a little bit more on this. And again, there is the support from the FSSU, and even within this presentation, we have embedded their video so that you can access that through this. So again, finance should be on the agenda, as we said, at each meeting. And again, it's often too late to just start looking at finance. Maybe things like enrollment, looking at numbers, looking at trends, again, putting work into the preparation of the budget is so important. We also ask for the finance statements to be sent to us every year. We are now sending letters back to every chairperson and to every board, and where there are boards that we are concerned with, you are getting follow-up questions from ourselves, from Eleanor, who works with us. So we can't underestimate the importance of enrollment, and that is linked to the fact that your grants to your school, the money, the income that you get, is linked to your numbers. So it's really, really important to be on top of your admissions, to be looking out there, to be monitoring trends, and again, looking at, is there anything that you can do to improve the enrollment of your school? Even though, and I will acknowledge that again, we're aware that enrollment figures throughout Ireland are about to decline in the next while. So it's really important for your board to be aware of that declining numbers for many schools is coming at you. Again, the school accounts have to be maintained in the manner prescribed by the FSSU, and the FSSU provide visits and supports to schools, in particular for schools with new principals. And again, there is much training available on their website. And again, we really do recommend that you avail of training sessions from them and avail of online options. The importance of the annual budget being prepared, that this becomes realistic, that it's not a guesstimate, that you actually look at how much you spent last year. You're planning ahead. Maybe that you're planning, well, look, we have the maintenance and we have this amount of painting to do coming up in the summer. Being clear and being accurate. The more accurate you are in the budget, the better it is in terms of financial management and monitoring. The principal is the one, again, who's working with their team in the school to puts the majority of work into planning this expenditure. The other piece of advice is you cannot submit to the JMB an unbalanced budget. It has to be coming in as a zero balance, so you cannot overspend on your budget. Each board must have a finance committee, and ideally, where possible, we're suggesting that if on your board you do not have an accountant, that maybe you would have somebody on your subcommittee, your finance subcommittee, who would have experience in accounts and be able to give advice and help you and support you on this. The FSSU have a monthly template, again, as a support for you, so you should know what exactly you should be receiving as a school board. And again, looking at your accounts, you should be able to see a comparison period for the year before and your budget moving forward, so that you can look and see, well, how are we doing on budget? Are we within budget? Have we overspent? Do we need to make adjustments to our spending? That real questions are asked and that the budget is used widely. It is important in terms of new boards that, again, when somebody's coming in, that new and fresh eyes look at the finance function, that it's not always the same people who are on the finance subcommittee. In terms of good governance, we would be saying that this is really important, that new people are brought in, that questions are asked. And again, we would be recommending that as little cash as possible is being used in schools now. Most schools have moved to online banking, and bank reconciliation should be done monthly. That again, there should be processes in place, and the board should know who are all the authorized signatures on the accounts, who are the approvers, is there a dual process in place? Credit card, if there is a credit card in the school, has it had authorization and approval from Chéile? It is important, if a new chairperson is coming onto the board, that previous old signatures are removed from the system. So we've put these here as guidelines for yourselves, and we hope that they will be, again, a short synopsis of many of the key things. You submit your end of year accounts by January. So many schools are now in the process of maybe bringing in their auditor and doing that audit at the moment. A copy of the school budget too has to be submitted to Chéile. We do review, as we said, each submission. A letter is written to each board of management with a high level view. Previously, these were only sent to the principal. Now going forward, they are being sent to the chairperson as well. And again, where we do ask questions or raise queries, we would expect that a reply is required. So we also, at the end of last year, incorporated some finance related questions into the end of year or the annual report. And for all members of the board to be aware that we said about that delegation, we also said about that accountability and letting us know. So we do require from all boards an end of year or an annual report, and again to link with your principal around that. And it's a very good tool, and it's really useful for boards to be familiar with the information that's there, because it can really help you. And Olive will show you later in WSC how that end of year report can really help a board. So we're also looking at the moment for schools that may be experiencing financial difficulty. We're looking at trying to develop a checklist for boards. And then in terms of property related, I'm going to be moving into that, and we are introducing new property procedures for everyone at the moment, and that will be shortly released, which are the new properties. Bottom line in finance is your school's finances have to be well managed. ongoing review, ongoing monitor and oversight of all members. And this is it is the responsibility of all members of your board. And if you see something, and if as a board you're looking at, here guys, this could be a problem down the line, please be proactive in reaching out to us as soon as possible, because then we can get in there too. So being proactive around that. And here is the link to the video from the FSSU, which is the training manual that all boards are expected to do. And it is recommended that the board actually play this and use this as part of one of their meetings. Again, there are many pieces of information on the FSSU website, but we're picking out just a couple there we picked. The board manages the school on behalf of the patron. Olive has said that already. It consults and keeps the patron informed of decisions and proposals, and again has regard for the efficient use of resources, the public interest and accountability. And that is really important in terms of good governance and oversight of finance. Trustee and patron approval. This is what the FSSU say for any extension, improvement, replacement of a building, hire purchase, bank loans, overdrafts. You cannot enter into a bank loan, overdraft, purchase anything, hire purchase or have lease agreements without a trustee patron approval. You may not borrow money. Credit cards have to be authorized, and you can see there that the FSSU say debit cards are not allowed. So that brings me to the end of finance, and I'm about to go into now the property piece. So again, please bear with us, but this is another really important area. And you may be asking why is all this finance and property stuff so important? Well, the bottom line is, and this is where it is, that if anything happens, who are the ones who do the bailout? Who do schools come to? Who is responsible? Who is carrying this is actually Chéile and Chéile. And that is why we are so conscious of our role and our responsibility. And again, guiding boards in their oversight and their governance in working together with you, so that we set boards and we set you up for success, so that you know what your role as a board member is vis-a-vis the trust. And I think that's quite important. So in a school, as you know, regular maintenance. I've mentioned that, wall painting, keeping the school looking fresh, fixing the desks, checking on things. The day-to-day, that routine maintenance is carried out. It's really important that the board is aware of that. We would say, again, Olive mentioned about going out and walking around. All new board members, a board should actually physically maybe leave that room and do a tour of the building. Do you know your boundaries? Have you looked at your school? Do you know where everything is in the school? And as a board member, you actually should have that. So you should be able to identify maybe this area, maybe those toilets need to be done up. Something like that. The boards, again, exercise that piece of being proactive around knowing your building. In all major building projects, the Board of Management is responsible for having oversight as the client. You are employing the people, you are responsible as the client. So the board must have oversight and knowledge of all that is going on in the school. The board's role regarding property, again, is in terms of developing the school's mission and characteristic spirit. And you do part of that mission through the maintenance and having a lovely building, a building, I would say, of joy. Is not what every parent wants, what every child wants, what every teacher wants. What we all want is that our buildings are places that we are proud of, that there is joy, and that reflects that ethos and values and commitment. Again, Chéile approval is required for any development of buildings, and in particular, again, echoing there what you saw from the FSSU, extensions, improvement, replacements of buildings, anything that requires planning permission. And in fact, Chéile may not be the owners of the property. The owners of the property in many cases is still our congregations. So through Chéile, we then have to consult with the owner of the property to get that planning permission for you. Anything that involves taking out a loan or an overdraft must have patron approval. Anything that involves a Department of Education building grant or a sports capital grant, permission for those must be applied for. And then improvements that cost more than the agreed amount per school size. And again, we're entering into, as I said, new procedures. And in those new procedures, we're looking at a 3-step approval process. So I'm outlining the 3 steps there. And again, people can link with Pat, who's on our property team. And again, Pat will guide people through that. But emergency works application, summer works, additional capital, which is additional accommodation, which can be for your special class, anything from special class or for extra rooms, or sports capital grant. Many principals and many boards are already doing this really, really well. And I want to thank you and say well done to all of the schools who are involved in multiple applications here. So, and considering, you know, looking for the best for their school. So thank you to all of the boards who are actively involved in that. We're introducing then 2 new steps, because often you got the money, but we never knew how much you got. We gave you permission to apply, but actually we now want to know, well, look, at the commencement of the project, how much money is the department giving you to manage? So that's just a new step, but actually you've done the hard work. You've already done the application. We've also sanctioned it. So this is just a small piece of information. It's not going to be too onerous, which is just letting us know. And then the final piece is before you go to build, that again, we're aware that building is about to start. And again, we would remind you that as a board, you need to ensure that your insurance company is also made aware of that. So for self-finance projects, so this is where a board maybe has some savings, board has money, and the board wants to get something done. So we actually do have a little recommended piece of spending. So look, if it costs, if you have a school less than 300 for 10,000, you know, you can go ahead and use up to 10,000 of your money there to do that. But if it goes above that, we want that again. We want confirmation. We apply application for patron approval. You confirm that your board can fund this from your own resources. So you would be probably saying, look, we have this in our savings, or this is in our accounts, and you can see this. And you have to confirm that planning permission is not required at that stage. Bottom line, this is your summary really here for board management oversight on buildings. Patron approval required before applying to the department under any of their programs. It's again required before works commence, and no works should be commenced unless there is written approval from the department, both the department and Chéile and Chéile. So again, we would be just reminding you of all of those. And that is my short summary, and I'm handing back to Olive now. So you've got through the big heavy piece now, everybody. But again, they will be available to you to look at as slides and for your consideration. And when the new policy is received, we will be contacting, when we have it developed, we'll be contacting all of the schools. Olive.
Thank you very much, Mary-Therese. So we started at the beginning. We talked about our 3 main roles: ethos, finance, and property. And Mary-Therese just dealt with the finance and the property. I'm going to now look at our ethos bit. And when we refer to our founders, our schools were founded to also depart educational experience to students, and part of that is obviously inspected by the Department of Education, who is the paymaster general in schools, and we know that. So if an inspection happens from the Department of Education, Chéile are notified. But they're notified of the subject inspections, the child protection inspections, the WSE inspection reports. What we would say to you is contact us and let us know as soon as you get notification that an inspection is going to happen. Only the last week, the WSE started up again. I visited a school down in the south of the country, and it was an absolute privilege to be able to go in there to that board of management and sit with them I knew how important it was, because having been in the principal's hot seat for many a year, it's terribly important to see representatives of your trust come in and sit shoulder to shoulder with you. So as well as all those resources that we mentioned tonight that are available on our website, we are a resource for you, and we want you to call upon us if we can help you. We are here to support you. So that night on the first inspection, I obviously made lots of notes, 10 pages of notes, and I want to just, I'm not going to go through the 10 pages tonight now, so don't everyone run away, but just the general issues that emerged that night. And it was amazing the number of times that the inspectors questioned the training of board members. And that's why tonight is a very important evening for us. And that is why the training with the JMB is very important, because the first question they start with was, did all members receive training from the JMB and from your trust? And here you are tonight, and thank you for presenting yourselves, because the information is terribly important to ensure that good governance. How many members have served on previous terms? So what we're trying to emphasize here tonight is that it's good for boards to change. It's good for fresh ideas to come in. So that turnover every 3 years is terribly important. Some people do a second term, and we're very grateful for that. But the turnover is important for good governance. Chéile emphasised the voluntary nature of board members. Now, we met you tonight and we said, thank you very much. You're the unsung heroes. And we emphasize that at all of the inspections. You are there in a voluntary capacity, and we are there to support you in that. And your generosity is commended and very much appreciated. The question also on the admissions policy, we know at the moment schools are involved there, and you send on that policy every year to Chéile, and you get back a response where we've approved it. If you've needed to make any amendments or updates, make sure that you are up to date on that if you get notice of an inspection. I know at the moment you all are. Questions to the board, such as, what do you see as the strengths of the board? Expertise of members. So many of you are coming from an educational expertise, a financial expertise, a legal expertise. So when you meet that first night and you're introducing yourselves after your walk around the plant, just give a little biography of yourselves, whether you're coming from the role of parent nominee, teacher nominee, trustee, representative. Let the board know exactly where your expertise lies, and let's play to your strengths. The question also, the importance of student voice, parent voice, reports that go back, agreed reports at the end of Board of Management meetings go back to the Parents Association. As a matter of form, every year we try to bring our student council into at least one of the meetings of our Board of Management. It's lovely to see our students, who are our primary clients, come into those board meetings, and they feel very important, and they are important. They're why we are there. So do, as a board, invite them in once a year. I was going to say maybe for one of the board meetings when you're not too busy, but I know you're going to be busy all the time. So just put it into the calendar and say, come on, we're going to bring you in there. During all inspections, inspectors look for evidence, and they'll say, but how do you know this? Give us an example that the board has taken that was influenced by student voice or parent voice. Now, that might be something like looking at uniform, it might be something like looking at curriculum, but they'll say, where is the evidence for this? So a lot of you will be involved in the SSE process. You've gathered information, so go back and see, where did the information come from? Did it come from the parents? Did it come from the students? And what did you do with their responses? Okay, what conversations happened at board level? Now, boards are there absolutely to govern, and boards are there to support the principal on a day-to-day basis. But we're also there to question. We're also there to have conversations. And sometimes there's no learning by just everyone agreeing around a table. I'm not suggesting for a moment that we disagree, but I am suggesting that we interrogate the information that's in front of us. That's part of the good governance. Look at the considerations and at least have those informed conversations around the Board of Management. This is the stuff that the inspectors were looking for. And they also look for progress since previous inspections. So if you have, say, a science inspection and there was 3 recommendations made, you know, it is up to the board to be on top of that, maybe under a subcommittee of teaching and learning. It's always a good idea. That is our bread and butter issue in schools, teaching and learning at the end of the day. And if you have a good subcommittee on that, you can have a look at those recommendations and adopt them and see, actually, does this particular department, do they need additional support, and what can the board do to facilitate it? So moving on then, in terms of you know, how you manage your board of management meetings. When you, again, get the Board of Management manual from the JMB, they will have a suggested agenda. And in the next slide, after I cover this one, I'll go through possibly 14 standard issues that are on agendas, okay? But before the agenda goes out, secretaries to the board, principals, have that conversation with the chairperson of the board and agree the agenda in advance. A lot of the time it'll be a standard agenda, but nevertheless, that relationship, that two-way flow of information between chairperson and secretary is terribly important prior to any board of management meeting taking place. Make sure then that you give the appropriate number of days, that the agenda is circulated to members in advance, so that the Board of Management members, so that they have time to look at it. And then that you have standard ordinary items on the agenda. I will name those in a few moments. Is there a systematic approach to the agenda and managing the meeting? Usually that is negotiated between the secretary and the chairperson. When I say secretary, I mean the principal secretary to the Board of Management. Is there an agreed report at the end of the meeting? It's good practice that there is, and only the agreed report moves forward from that meeting and can be very openly shared with Parents Association and all of the partners. But all of this must be evident in the minutes. You cannot say to inspectors, yes, we did it. They say, where is the evidence? There's an element of, hope there's no inspectors in the building. That, we have to see the evidence, and then we know it's there, and it is good practice. So a sample agenda should be issued on a school-headed paper and should include the general notice, an ordinary meeting of the Board of Management. Most of your meetings will be ordinary meetings, with the exception if there is an exceptional item. That might be an incident or appointment of a new principal or deputy principal, or indeed an extraordinary meeting when you have a subject inspection. Make sure you give the date, the time, and the location of it. This sounds simple, but sometimes, we can be very busy, and it's the simple things that can slip. So just moving on slightly there, then, here is a standard agenda, and this will be mentioned to you again. And running down through it, it's very standard, and you will work through this. If you, as a newly appointed principal and secretary to the Board of Management, if you adopt this approach now, it will become just a matter of form, and you will use this on every occasion. You'll also make sure when you're doing your minutes that it refers to all of the items there. Subcommittees can be agreed at your first meeting. Financial report is there. There's usually a subcommittee to the finance, and early in the year, and sometimes during the year now as well, you'll have ratification of staff appointments. Every new member of staff has to be read into a Board of Management meeting. Up-to-date reports, it may be ACMS meetings or Chéile cluster meetings or the Chéile AGM, as the case may be. Any whole school development and progress. The principal's report tends to encompass everything else, but the principal's report should stand alone and stand proud from all of the other items. Child protection oversight report is an item that must be present on every agenda. And if you get an inspection, they start a whole school inspections, a whole school evaluations with a child protection safeguarding inspection. So again, for newly appointed principals, I would say make sure that you have your child protection safeguarding statement on display. Make sure that you've sent your template 3 back to Chéile. That will be approved, and you need a letter prior to any inspection taking place, showing that Chéile have approved that statement. So these are the little things that might slip by in a busy day. Please do make contact with us. We are there to assist. We've walked the walk, and we want to walk side by side with you, not ahead of you, not behind you, side by side. So please do make contact with us. So just moving on then from there, policy development and your cycle of review of policies. Where do we start when we're looking at what policies will we review as a board of management? What is our priority? Well, if you go back to Claire's done fabulous work on the end of year report, and there's a cycle that you go through. What did I review last year? It's okay unless I need to go back over it. You can leave that for at least a year, possibly 2 years if it's not in any way contentious. And we all know in reviewing policies that we tend to review them when an issue emerges, and that's okay because it tightens up the policy as well. So be prepared for that. But all of your policies, your mandatory policies, should go through a cycle of review between every 3 and 5 years. And the like of the admissions policy, that's every year. Your child safeguarding policy, that's every year. So we go into your the Chéile end of year report and do up a little table and say, right, this is where we are, this is where we're going to this year. And when you go through that cycle, it's very obvious that you are working through it with all the partners and ratifying them at board level. Okay, what was your order of merit? Well, I've mentioned that, you know, it's very much in terms of, has new legislation come in? Have you been challenged in a particular area? And are you actually due to review it? What stands out from the process of review? In other words, you know, what motivated you in doing it? And is there someone on the board that keeps an eye on SSE? So SSE, for any new people coming on the board, is the school self-evaluation, and it is how schools perform action research in their schools and look at a particular area of interest, gather data, bring it back to staff, students, parents, and then take it to the board and see where's the action going to happen from there. So okay, another question that was asked with the inspectors, you know, how does the board manage inspection reports? So when you get an inspection report, it will come to the principal, and the principal will bring it back to the board of management. And that will be a discussion that takes place at board level. And the discussion is always of a very supportive nature. And more often than not, the inspection reports are something that give us great pride in the work that is done by teachers and students and parents as we all move forward in partnership. So there are moments where you can sit back and say, you know what, we're very, very pleased with that now. What specific oversight does the board have with inspection reports? What that's really saying is, if a decision has to be made to do something differently, that will come from a discussion with the board and will then go back to the particular subject departments if that is the case that it has to happen. Is there evidence of that happening? So in terms of minutes from a board of management, that is evidence there. And is there evidence of progress in the inspections? Very much subject department meetings will reflect recommendations from inspection reports. So just again, moving along there, because we're coming close to the end there. In terms of strategic planning, I'm going to pass over now to Mary-Therese, and staff, principals and chairpersons who have been attending cluster meetings are very aware of what's happening in terms of our strategic planning at Chéile and where it is at the moment. Over to you, Mary-Therese.
Thanks a million, Olive. Fair play to you. And again, I suppose, Olive, the key question is, going back to what you said there, you know, why are we as Chéile talking about school inspection reports? Well, the answer goes back to that we are sent copies of that we as a patron or as a trustee have a responsibility and have a remit in this area too. And again, one of the things, how we support our schools, I think this is important for boards to know, that we share experiences. So just like Olive has shared, from the very first WSE that's out of the blocks, the first schools in the country have just had their WSEs in the last 2 weeks. So we share the learning with each other. And again, at cluster meetings, maybe a principal at conferences or deputy principal conferences, there is a lot of sharing within peers, and even our chairpersons sharing their role. For example, Pat from Newbridge shared his experience as a chair of the Child Protection and Safeguarding Inspection. So again, our principals, our chairs are involved in constantly sharing and helping and supporting each other within the Chéile network. So Olive said that, again, currently our board, our Chéile and the Chéile boards are actually in a cycle of strategic planning. So our current plans exist up to 2024, but we're getting ready now for the next one. But that's about us. And I know our members, so the people who represent you at clusters, they've been involved, they're aware of that. But we go back and we say to boards, and managers, you saw it there earlier where we said about strategically looking at your property. What can you finance? Even planning your budget or planning your finances. If you need to really put in a load of switches in your school in terms of ICT, and maybe your ICT grant doesn't go far enough, but then you may have to be budgeting for that over a period of time yourself in the school, or budgeting for the painting of your school over a 3-year or a 5-year period. You know, how you manage that. So that's part of your strategic planning. And what we have done is we have, again, looked at this from the role of the board. So again, it is part of the board, and it's often seen to be in the looking at our schools framework. And this is an important framework that many of our school staff, our principals, our deputies, maybe our chairs are familiar with. The looking at our schools framework. I'm picking out here specifically in domain 3, leading school development. If you see in the very first statements here of effective practice, it mentions the role of the patron and trustees. The board of management and principal are proactive in establishing and maintaining a guiding vision for the school. So it's not the characteristics they're on about here, but that guiding vision, which can be a strategic plan. And it goes about communicating that vision, bringing people forward. What is your plan? The communication of this, you know, empowers the whole community to translate that vision into action. And that action is exactly linked to what Olive has described earlier through the school self-evaluation process, through subject department meetings, through subcommittees of the board. How do you inspire action? How do you link then and motivate the staff and students through setting high expectations? All of this is actually linked to having a strategic plan where you are identifying what are the areas that you need to work on. And again, you know, even in helping you to do this, you actually have an awful lot of information already available to you. So you have, as Olive said, all of your inspection reports or your WSE recommendations. You probably will have a results of analysis or results of attendance that are being presented to you through the principal or deputy principal. You will have a student profile. You'll have an idea. Are you a DESH school? Are you a fee charging school? Have you, you know, where are the areas of deficit? What is your student profile like? There's a lot that you have as information. Equally, and again, the principal and maybe chair is aware of this through JMB training, the needs and priorities, the post of responsibility review for all of your assistant principals, AP1s and AP2s, your entire school staff are involved in a needs and priorities analysis every 2 years. And this is another resource that you have to build into your strategic vision. Curriculum review, looking at your subjects, looking at what you might be interested in offering. Is there any subjects that maybe the numbers taking up the subjects are not there anymore? And maybe you need to look in new ways and look at curriculum development for your school. Statistics on your schools, and as I said, your school facilities. So you have a lot of information. And then how might you go about using that? Well, we would say a very easy way to conduct a strategic review is to look at your SWOT analysis, your strengths, your areas where you know you might need to develop. Look at opportunities that are out there within the system. Is there opportunities for your school to maybe apply for grants? Are there opportunities for you to get involved at curriculum level, get involved in some pilot projects? And then maybe there's any threats coming at you, which could be, like I already mentioned, maybe decreasing demographics. Maybe there's a new school being built in your area. Maybe, again, you know, there's other things, maybe the lack of resources, maybe a changing student profile. But there's many different things that you as a board can involve. And it's not about you doing it all. This is actually about you creating that culture as a board to involve your students, your parents, your staff. Again, maybe members of your community who are very devoted to your school, or community activists who have a lot to get involved in. And maybe host a consultative forum. Maybe you could invite people in. It doesn't have to be every single person. It doesn't have to be hundreds of people, but representative groups, hosting focus groups, different ways to do it. So I suppose what we'd be recommending is you make sense of this for yourself. And again, at Chairperson's Days and at other events, we have covered a little bit of this on strategic development, because this is where we have a role in that guiding vision with yourselves and helping you to do that. So we would also share, this is just a little tool, it's called a PESEL analysis tool, to look at maybe political influences. So maybe like looking at, well, look what money is available. What's the Department of Education saying around something? What are the opportunities that are there? In terms of economic, you know your budget's best. Where have you got finances? Maybe is there a way to get finances maybe from outside sources? And I know that recently we sent to principals and to deputy principals a little sheet of opportunities where they could avail of some funding. What are the social things that are happening? Like, for example, if we've said the word vaping in schools, we probably know that that is a huge piece. You know, phones, recovery from COVID, school attendance issues. These are some of the social issues. Legal things, like currently, as Olive said there, the admissions policy. If you look at another legal piece, it could be the dignity in the work. So there's different things that change and an impact upon you. Sustainability, availability, and environmental, your whole physical building, and then into technological things that relate to IT and your platforms. What are you making decisions wise? So a PESEL tool is also a tool that you can use to help you in terms of strategic planning. Again, this links back to that first bit. Boards should be aware of the conditions of the building and identify areas for remediation and replacement. The board should be planning strategically, avail of Department of Education schemes that are available to help address areas, and again, attention to be paid for any potential changes in school boundaries, rights of way, utilities access, things like that that impact on the school facilities. We put in here an example. This is from another school where this is actually what their strategic plan, they chose 6 areas to focus on. As Olive would said, the core being teaching and learning. They looked at student support and student voice, community involvement. Are there different ways are there different themes then that when you would look at this, can you pull your plan into different themes? And then maybe you get somebody maybe to design it as a graphic design or something that could be done, and avail of outside expertise then to finish off your plan. But that generally would be the basis of a short strategic plan. So for us, we're saying, look, we're going back to, again, remind people of our summary here tonight around finance, around property, to avail of Department of Education grants, to know what's out there. And again, we're encouraging you to plan ahead, plan strategically, and use your WSC, your subject recommendations, to use all of that to link together, because we're hoping that from tonight you can see that there are links throughout this, that there are common themes, and that it's our role and responsibility as patron too to help you do that, and then equally the responsibility of the board to link back to inform us. So as Olive said there earlier on that slide, it goes 2 ways. So there is the, you know, we inform you, you inform us, we all work together. And I think that's the real strong message coming out of this, is that by working together that we will be stronger. And again, we're there to support you and give you help and guidance. And we're going to finish with that really as one of our final slides. Olive, and back over to you.
Yep. Yeah, thanks very much, Mary-Therese. And just to emphasise tonight, yes, we've gone through a lot of serious business, and boards of management are serious business because they're looking after the governance of schools. But we want to be there for you, and we will be there for you. And there's a lot of experience in all of the Chéile members, and we're here to share it with you. So you've heard from Mary-Therese tonight, you've heard from Claire, Tony Lee will be back, and I will just try and do some good in his absence is all I can say. We're here to assist you no matter what it is. Mary-Therese's motto, you'll see it on anything she puts out there, it's Ancora Impara. You know, I'm still learning. We are all still learning. You know, as Marguerite would say, every day is a school day, and we learn together. So please don't be afraid of making contact with us. We want you to make contact with us. And while it seems very serious, you know, my advice is, if you can at all, even when it's serious, have a bit of fun. Enjoy each other's company at Board of Management meetings. Start off with a nice cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and a slice of coffee cake. Never went astray on me anyway. And become united in your governance as a board. Go to the shows in the school. Engage with the students. If you have time, you know, go to these events that make us all feel so proud of the schools that we are connected with. Issues, any little issue can be ironed out. Please, I would say to newly appointed principals, don't keep any worry to yourself. We've heard it all before. I've certainly done it all before. I'd only share all my mistakes with you while this is being recorded, but you know, we are there to assist you. We meet with principals and chairpersons. The cluster meetings are absolutely fabulous. You know, forms of collaboration and sharing of ideas and assisting each other. We'll do our annual conference there the first weekend in February. You'll hear more about that. And I just want to thank everyone that connected with us tonight after very busy days. Mary-Therese started off by saying, you know, you are the unsung heroes. You are. Thank you very much. And after 52 slides, I think you all deserve a nice cup of tea. But before you go, we're going to open up the cameras and ask you if there's any questions you would like to ask. And thanks again to Deirdre in the background for organising everything.